I had like my hands down there. I could feel her head coming. And we talked about like I wanted to catch if that worked out. If not, then like maybe if he wanted to catch. And so my hands were down there feeling her crown. And then, then she actually is born and you're bracing. And he was not ready to catch. So she just landed on that nice soft comforter that I had in the van. And then he just like passed her through my legs.
Hi, I'm Kayla Heater, follower of Jesus, wife and mother of 5 children, Christian childbirth educator and doula, and your host of the Surrendered Birth Stories podcast, where we share God-centered birth stories, evidence-based birth education, and our pursuit of surrendering our birth plans to God. Let's get started. Hey everyone, hope your week is off to a great start. I'm recording this a little bit early. We just had Halloween yesterday, which has always been a really fun, nostalgic, childlike holiday for me. Let me just say, I know this is a Christian, Jesus-centered podcast. I am not here to debate whether or not Christians should celebrate Halloween. I know people feel very strongly on both ends of the spectrum, and I completely understand and respect everyone's opinions and convictions and all of those things. Personally, for our family, we grew up, dressing up and trick-or-treating and doing like fun Halloween parties with, like carnival games and face painting and all the different things. And it's always just been just really nostalgic for me. My mama, who is my mom's mom, she passed away about 13 years ago, give or take, but she was always a really good potter. She made all sorts of pottery and she made super detailed, extravagant decorations, which was really cool. So she made this like haunted house and this black cat and like a spooky tree and all these things where she made them herself, crafted them with her hands, designed the details, painted them. She made them, multiple copies of them for all of her children. And then those got passed on, to grandchildren. So I now have these Halloween decorations that my mama made like 40 some years ago that are still in my house that I just have the best memories of when I was a kid. They would get brought out and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's exciting. It's getting time. There were like lights inside of them that would light up. And it was just always so fun for me and always so exciting for me. And I mean, as a kid, you get to dress up and have fun. And we grew up in Ohio. So it was colder, but we would go trick-or-treating and our houses in our neighborhood was super close together. And it was like every single house participated. It was not optional. It was like every house you got to stop and get candy. We would fill up pillowcases that were so heavy of all this candy. And it just was always just such fun for us. Like it was just like this super lighthearted, fun time, carving jack-o'-lanterns and eating pumpkin seeds and all the things. It's really fun. And so that's just kind of how we've done it with our kids. And, we carve jack-o'-lanterns and we eat the pumpkin seeds and we dress up and we decorate, but we don't do like the gore and the death and the evil and all that kind of stuff. Like we steer away from all that. We keep it light and childlike and fun. And it's really fun just to have my mama's decorations up around our house that just reminds me of when I was a kid, and now they're like my kids' favorite decorations too. But we did go trick-or-treating last night, and I just have to say, my son Milo, he's my oldest son, my second born, him and I, that was my favorite costume maybe we've ever done. Well, we saw it, I think my sister sent it to me or something. We saw it on like maybe a reel or a meme or something, I don't know. But it was super simple. We were stick people. Okay. So it was so, like how you would draw like a stick person, like if you're not a very good drawer, but you can draw a stick person, right? Circle and some lines. Well, we were stick people. So we dressed in all black so that we would be like dark. Okay. So we had like just all black clothes. And then we got glow sticks from the dollar store. Okay. So they were like $1. We got glow sticks and taped them with clear packing tape to our bodies. in the shape of a stick person. And then when we were like walking down the street in the darkness for Halloween, not only were we lit up, but we looked like a stick person glowing, like walking in the street. It looked so cool. It was really fun. And we kept trying to take like a really good picture of it. But you know, the iPhones, and they'll like naturally lighten it so you can see everything. And we were like, stop, just take like a dark picture. I don't know. We couldn't figure it out, but we took some videos, some little videos. So it was, I don't know. I just thought it looked so cool and so funny. It was really fun. So we did that. So however you guys celebrated or didn't celebrate or whatever you do, I hope you had a great time just with your families. Now it's November. We're heading into Thanksgiving season, which is super fun. That's my husband's favorite holiday. So just excited to continue enjoying this beautiful fall weather and the colors on the leaves as long as they'll stay before they all fall off. Okay, let's do a review. We haven't read a review in a few weeks. And so if you are new to the show, or if you've never left a review before, I know a lot of you haven't, just because I know the number of reviews we have versus the number of listeners we have. So if you haven't, it really, really, really would mean a lot to me and my husband if you would just take the 30 seconds it takes to leave a written review. You just scroll down to the bottom of our podcast show page and you can click write a review and you just type it in real quick and simple and bam, that's it. But it means a lot to us and it really helps the show get in front of other people so that they can see it too, because most people don't know this show exists. So we're just still trying to get the word out. All right, this review comes from S. Dorothy. She says, although I am way past the childbearing years, I have really enjoyed the birth stories of young women and their experiences. Their strength and faith is revealed in each of their births. It makes me wish I could go back and put God more in the center of each one of my 3 births. I think I was too centered on myself, even though I was immensely grateful to Him for each one. Thank you, Kayla, in sharing your effort and time spent enlightening the birth process to other women who are considering or are in the middle of birthing a child. Lots of valuable information in your podcasts. Thank you. Thank you for leaving that. And that is so encouraging to me that it's not just women in their childbearing years who are listening to this, that we have other women listening to this too, who maybe are past that point or are grandmothers at this point. And that is exciting to me, knowing that we're, inspiring and affecting the generations, because even though you might be past that point, you could pass this information along or this podcast along to somebody that you know is in that stage of life. So I'm just grateful for that. Thank you for leaving that review. And again, if y'all could leave a review if you haven't yet, that would be so, so helpful. Okay, let's get into this week's episode. Researching and learning all you can about birth years before you'll be going through it can be extremely beneficial in gaining knowledge and being prepared. Trying to control everything, however, will only bring you stress and anxiety. Elleah shares her 3 pregnancy stories with us today. Her first in the hospital, her second, a devastating miscarriage, and her third, planned birth center birth, but ended up having that baby somewhere else. Trusting God must be at the center of our births in order to have peace, and letting go and surrendering to the process is what God was teaching Elleah to do, especially in this last delivery. Welcome to another episode of Surrendered Birth Stories. I am your host, Kayla Heater, and I have Elleah with me today. Elleah, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us about who you are, what your life looks like. Just let us get to know you.
Yep. I live in small town, Ohio, very small church-oriented town, great place to raise kids. I'm married. I've been married for about 5 years, and we have 2 daughters and a dog. I'm a nurse. I worked as a nurse in a couple of different areas, just like general med surg. I dabbled in labor and delivery, so probably for like 6 or 7 months before it kind of got too much there, as far as like I had unmanaged anxiety. I was working night shifts and it's a lot of legality.
Mm.
And so it's very stressful. And right now I'm just mostly staying at home with the girls, and I work some just cataract surgery center, super low stress job. And I went and got doula training back in last March, so over a year ago. That's kind of in the works. Like once our
Cool.
family kind of gets settled in, and yeah, we'll be hoping to do some dueling.
Oh, that's really fun. Okay, let's talk about your journey then, your journey into motherhood and how you came to have your two girls and all of that. So take us back to your very first pregnancy.
Yeah. So, well, originally we just decided to like maybe we wanted to be married for about a year, just to get settled into married life and then start trying. And I knew I had irregular cycles. I have two sisters who are about 8 and 10 years older, and they both struggled a lot with fertility. And one has only one child and only ever one pregnancy and years of trying, and the other one had multiple miscarriages. So I was very anxious to make sure everything worked and like what it was going to look like for me. And I just always did a lot of learning. I think even fresh out of college, I was like not even dating, but I was looking for, healthcare providers and stuff like that in the area who specialize in natural fertility, and so just a lot of awareness. And we did natural family planning. So I did like the symptothermal method.
Mm-hmm.
I got to see like when I ovulated, my cycles were like usually like 38 to 42 days long. Just
So longer cycle. Yeah.
yeah, longer cycle. I had like just signs of like low progesterone, my own medical diagnosis. But so we finally we went ahead to start trying. I was all over, the charting and all the things that I should be doing. And I think I did LH strips to like confirm ovulation, and I was just very entwined with it. And like I said, I struggle with anxiety. And so it wasn't like a great, enjoyable time.
Yeah.
And then the nervousness of what it would look like for me compared to my sisters. So it was probably like 6 months, and we didn't have any luck. And I actually found a NatPro doctor. They do like a different type of method. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Creighton method of natural family planning. It's a more in-depth method of tracking like your cervical mucus. Like it's got a lot more like details to it. And the idea is doing that method and getting with a Creighton certified doctor, they're able to look at your chart and diagnose you with your chart and your, and labs and stuff. So they just have a bigger picture.
No, you know what? Somebody did. It's like my mind is going back and I'm like, wait a second. In the last 60 birth stories I've recorded, somebody did talk about that.
Yeah.
And now I can't remember who it was, but somebody did, man, and I feel bad for not remembering. Somebody did tell me about that because it was like they said they were doing that and then they found out they were pregnant I think maybe the first month. And I feel bad for not remembering, but whoever you are, I'm sorry. And it's on the podcast somewhere. So
Yeah.
Go back so somebody tell me, who was that? Somebody tell me who that was. Okay. But yes, now that you say that, I'm like, yes, I do know a little bit about that, but you can keep explaining it and talking about it.
Yeah. You're supposed to get with the teacher to do it correctly. And I was just kind of impatient, and it's not as easy to find someone in your area, or I think, you could probably do online. And I was kind of lucky to find a doctor so close to me who would accept that kind of charting. But yeah, they just have the ability, because it's such an in-depth, there's so many levels of mucus that it's like you're charting on, and very detailed, and that they can tell you more information about it. So I met with this doctor when I was after 6 months ish of trying. But anyway, she was so lovely. She was like, you know what, I need 2 months of this charting, and like, you can come back in 2 months and bring me that chart and we'll look at that together. But until then, we'll get some lab work done. We'll do an ultrasound, we'll tell insurance that it's been a year of trying, and because there's that rule.
So it'll cover it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was just really nice of her. I didn't have to fight for anything.
Fight for it.
It's just it worked out really well. And actually I got to my second month of the charting and I got pregnant. So I didn't go through meeting with her after both of those. So maybe it's something about the Creighton method that gets you pregnant faster.
That gets you pregnant right away.
Yeah. So that was that. But I found out I was pregnant, and I always take my pregnancy tests by myself. Joel's at work, and my initial reaction was actually like a lot of fear and overwhelm, and I think I felt like a little bit unworthy.
Why?
I think I had like this thought in my head that I was like needing to be like, I needed to eat all the things right. I needed to like do everything right. Not drink, alcohol or anything like while you're trying to get like everything to give me the best chances of a healthy baby. And so like, I already felt like I failed because I just kind of like, I was an emotional roller coaster when we were trying. So,
yeah.
I think actually during that time too, somewhere in there, I was very low point and finally made the decision to get on medication for depression and anxiety. And that helped immensely with the roller coaster of emotions. And so my initial feeling, I was just like, yeah, there's crying and I'm not sure what it was
where the tears were coming from.
Yeah. And then I was just in shock. And I have my poor husband, he's also not the first one to know when I'm pregnant. It's always my friends or my close friend. And because I have to wait, a whole day of work for him to come home. And I can't keep
so somebody else finds out first.
Yeah. Yeah. I got to share that with him. We were very excited, and I was very on top of hoping and praying that I wouldn't miscarry. I got right into the doctor's office and I requested to get my labs drawn, the HCG and progesterone, to see that they were rising, and they were totally fine with me doing that. I got my progesterone, my second progesterone back, I think Thanksgiving. It was like the holiday, so they weren't in the office when I received my results, and it was low. And so I was panicked. The story of this pregnancy is going to be that I was like trying to control everything,
Yeah, sounds like it.
All the details. Yes. Yes. And I actually had a friend who was on progesterone with her pregnancy. And so she sent me her leftovers, which is not recommended by any medical professional. But I was very grateful, and I started those, and then it was like 4 days before I could hear from the office, and then everything looked good, and they prescribed me progesterone, and I stayed on that for my first trimester.
Was it like injections?
It was vaginal suppositories. I think they said you could take either or, but studies show that they're more
effective. Vaginally.
Mm-hmm. That was like the build up to my very first pregnancy. The build up to the second one is not quite as much, but this is all my first like pregnancy learning, and just kind of how I got to be where I am now. A little bit more relaxed, but not perfect.
Right. It sounds like you, had been obviously thinking about it for years and preparing for it for years. So then once you were pregnant and once you got past, the first trimester of progesterone supplements and stuff, did you feel good? Did you feel sick? What was your experience like physically?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I, in general, love being pregnant. The first trimester was nausea, fatigue, and then like some vomiting with like brushing my teeth. I had to change my toothpastes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I definitely still felt very nauseous and having to learn how to manage that. And you just kind of don't want to do anything. You want to be a couch potato, and then you feel guilty because all you want to do is lay around and eat potato chips, and as learning how to take care of yourself and eat this certain diet and all of that. So dealing with those anxieties, but overall, good. I felt pretty good. Second trimester, I remember thinking where is this burst of energy that everyone talks about? This like, for whatever reason, I thought like I'm going to be energized. And in general, I'm like, I had to remind myself I'm not naturally an energized person. I don't just wake up ready to go or like have, I'm a drowsy person by, and so I was like, for whatever reason, shocked that I wasn't like this energizer bunny in second trimester, but I felt really good. I was really excited to have a bump. I probably didn't feel a baby until like 22 or 23 weeks. I got with a birth center. So in Dayton, which it's about 15 minutes away from me, there's a hospital, and connected, they have a birth center. It's labor and delivery ward, and then through two double doors is the birth center. But they have like different protocol, and you still have to meet their criteria to get into that area. And
So
then
it's not a freestanding birth center, it's attached, but do they have like the same medical interventions? Or would you have to like, if you wanted, say you wanted like an epidural or something, would you have to then transfer to the labor and delivery ward?
mhm.
Okay. Okay.
So
Cool.
yeah, connected, and yeah, same like staff, but ish. Like you could get floated, I think, to one or the other, but you are like, you work for natural family beginnings is what it's called, or you work for labor and delivery, like uh, as your main spot too, as far as staffing goes.
Okay.
So I had already found those. It's a doctor, a couple, like two or three OBs, and then a group of midwives who I met with, and they rotated all through. I really only had to meet with the OBs for like the 8-week ultrasound to confirm like viability. The OB did it right there in the office. And then maybe like after the 20-week ultrasound, just to review like any results, I think. But other than that, if I didn't want to, I didn't have to see the OB. But these OBs were pretty lovely. And I felt like, I mean, they chose to work with like a large group of midwives. So I felt pretty confident. One of the OBs, he's since retired, but he's a man of God as well. And I think he works with like lower income areas as well. And he reads for like the pregnancy help centers.
Mm-hmm.
Like he'll read their ultrasounds and like
Oh, cool.
do some of that stuff. So that was
Yeah.
just like an extra sprinkle of reassurance that I was in the right place.
Yeah.
And other than that, like the closest area, there's like a hospital that's 20 to 30 minutes from me.
So sounds like with wanting to be at the birth center with midwives, and you're going the more natural route, did you have a specific like birth plan in mind? Did you have like a vision of how you wanted your birth to go?
Yeah. I think I had just kind of the gold standard of like a natural, like unmedicated vaginal birth, few or no cervical checks, like kind of just every crunchy thing I could do, minus like eating the placenta. Like I feel like I was like interested in most of the things. So I did have a doula. My best friend just finished her certification, or she was in the process of getting certified. She did have like 3 births. So like she is my like very best friend, and she's also my confirmation sponsor. Like when we were younger, she's a couple, like she's 2, 3 years older than me, but we've been close since like early high school. So that was just wonderful to have someone to refer to all my questions. And she had 2 kids at the time, and her second one was a home birth. So she was a little crunchy, and that's probably where I got a lot of my ideas and inspiration from. So yeah, birth center, I came in like when I met with the midwives, or like for my very first meeting, I had my whole questionnaire of like what you read in the book, like this is all the things you should ask them. And they were just kind of like, yep, we do that all. Like kind of blew me off a little bit, but in a way of like, this is our standard. So that was nice.
Yeah.
When I wrote out my birth plan, I did all the research, and I wrote out for like what I want in like labor and what happens if I have to be induced. Here's the medications I want, and then what it looks like if I have to get a C-section. So I felt like I had a plan everywhere. I wasn't closed off to only getting my natural physiological birth. I imagined it, being spiritual. I imagined, like, I dreamed of getting to work with my body and my baby and listening to my body and getting to like move in whatever way that I'm supposed to be moved, and hoping to like just rely on God and bond with my husband and my best friend and do that together. That was just kind of like the daydream aspect of what I pictured my birth to be like.
Yeah. It's always good to envision what you want it to look like and go over it in your mind. And so, I mean, like, just like that positive reinforcement mentally is so important.
Yeah, and I think like having a little bit of time in labor and delivery and in the hospital in general as a nurse, like I know like their hands are tied. They have to like chart, they have to, follow orders. And so I did build up some walls of like, I don't want to be like forced into anything. I was very nervous about like, getting someone who's kind of pushing me into like an epidural or like a C-section. Listening to lots of birth stories, you hear a lot about like doctors doing things without consent,
Mm-hmm.
nurses doing things without consent. So I was just very like, I was very ready, on guard for that, I guess.
Yeah.
My sister had some of those experiences with her birth as well. So I was like, I was ready. I put my shield, my wall up a little bit, and I felt like I wanted to just build my birth team the best I could in case, my nurse was having a bad day, my doctor was having, or midwife or whoever. So
Yeah.
yeah, built it up as best I could.
Well, take us to labor. How did labor start? How far along were you? What did all that look like?
So my first was born at 38 and 4. Um,
Whoa.
yeah, I have early babies, but I
Yeah.
mentally prepared for a 42 weeker. So
And that's the way to do it. You prepare
yes,
for a 42 weeker.
yep, I'm going to be pregnant forever. She was born end of July, so it was very hot, but I love summer. I just felt good, other than like some swelling. Overall, was like ready to be pregnant forever. I think we had a set of like 90-degree weather coming up, and I was like excited. It was going to be sunny every day. I was going to go to the pool like every day. Like I was just very happy being pregnant. But it did. I middle of the night naturally went up to go to the bathroom, and my water broke when I was on the toilet, which was very nice. Not having a
Nice and
mess.
convenient to catch.
Yes, very convenient. But I had meconium in my waters.
Mm.
And so I was very like stressed right
Your
away.
anxiety
Right
started
away.
immediately. Yeah.
Yeah. And my husband was very excited. He was like, I called him in, woke him up, and he's just like peppy and ready to go. And I was like, nope. I'm already out of the birth center. Like I risked out right
Oh,
away.
they won't let you birth there with meconium in the water?
Mhm.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I was bummed. But in hindsight, maybe a good thing to just have it right away. Like you're not going to the birth center. Like that's that versus like getting there and like maybe even getting into the birth center and
And
having to
then
move away
being
from it or
moved.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yep, we called midwife and my doula. We were advised to go right away. It was pretty thick meconium,
Okay.
like dark green, and went into triage. They checked me, and it was a very painful check. I didn't have any cervical checks. I never had like any question. Like they never asked me about induction or about any cervical exams the whole time with my care. The baby was like breech for up until like 37 weeks.
Oh, so she flipped right before.
Yeah. And I actually had an appointment with the OB, um, who owned the practice or ran the practice, because he would do like a in-office version,
Mm-hmm.
to flip the baby. And so that day I went in for an appointment, and he said she was head down, so I didn't have to do that. And so I went into triage. They went to check me. It was super painful. She was taking forever. And
Mm.
she finally like stopped, and she said I was like a centimeter and a half. And she couldn't feel any sutures like on the babies, like to verify that it was the head.
Mm-hmm.
So we were thinking that the baby was breech because that doctor just told me that like he felt with his hands that she was head down. And I was like, I should have had him do an ultrasound. Like,
I would have confirmed.
yeah, to confirm, yeah, that he was feeling correctly. But anyways, in the time she went to get an OB on call to come scan and make sure head down. But I was a little nervous that I was automatically going to like a C-section or something.
Mm.
I knew that they would deliver vaginal breech, but I wasn't like well prepared. I didn't know that I would really choose that
Yeah.
in such a short amount of time.
Right.
So she was head down. But these are
Well,
just
that's
like
good.
little stressors. Anyways, they got me to my room. They got us like settled on the continuous monitors because of the meconium.
And had you had any contractions yet?
I had mild cramping. I had
Okay.
very, very, very mild cramping on the way. And I think it picked up some contractions on the monitor, but yeah, super mild.
Yeah.
And my water broke probably about 1 a.m. in the morning. And then jumping forward, I started Pitocin like after lunch. So like
So
1
like
p.m.
12 hours.
So they gave me 12 hours to try, and get things going on my own. I walked around the halls. I pumped. Luckily, my doula is my best friend, and she let me use her pump because I didn't have mine with me. So she
Mm.
had hers because she was nursing still.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And so trying to pump, trying to do the mile circuit, all the things, nothing was really happening. I don't even know if I continued to have mild cramps.
So you were doing all that in the 12 hours leading up to when
Mhm.
they put you on Pitocin. Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. And my midwife came in, I think, the beginning of her shift, maybe around 9 a.m. And she said, "So I hear you don't want Pitocin." And I was kind of confused at first because nobody like talked to me, like nobody brought it up, which I knew it was going to be coming. But they read my birth plan, which was really nice because it said, the nurse
No
just
Pitocin.
yeah, she's like, she's not interested in Pitocin. So that was nice. So she came in and so we had a discussion about Pitocin. I asked about cervical ripeners in my mind and my research. I wanted Cervidil over misoprostol and whatnot, but this is experienced midwife talked about. She just didn't like them. I think she said they make everything dry and like more uncomfortable. I don't know. That's like the first I've heard of that, and I don't know if she meant like for the birth process or
Oh,
what that meant. If I
I feel
didn't,
like they do the opposite, but
I don't know.
anyways.
She wasn't a big fan of them. She said with Pitocin, we can do low and slow. We might go up to 4 and just eventually get up to 4 and stay there. And that was like, okay, that's already like a much better than I would have imagined. I just didn't want to hop on the Pitocin train of like, I have to be bumped up every 30 minutes,
Right.
you know. And so that was all like her idea and recommendation, and I was okay with that. And that's what we did. I probably started, like they said, order lunch. I was adamant that I was like going to eat. And I ordered lunch. We started Pitocin after I ate. And then I just I made sure I was eating throughout, and nobody ever really said anything. And I also didn't ask. So
So you just kept eating.
just kept eating. This was also like the perfect time in the midst of COVID because they weren't testing or asking you to be tested. They weren't having laboring women wear masks. They wanted visitors to wear masks, but they didn't really enforce it. And then like I think you could have 2 people in the laboring room with you, and then like 3 or 4 in postpartum. So it was pretty relaxed, closer to normal. And I'm pretty sure like 2 weeks after we gave birth, it was like tightened back up again, like a lot more strict, a lot of like testing. I think there was a rise. So I started Pitocin low and slow, kept walking, kept doing, all the things. I was advised to rest. And I also think like some of the staff kind of gave us some funny looks, like when we were walking through the halls so much, like I had my tennis shoes on and I was like all about like getting everything going. But I was too nervous to relax. Like I wanted things to start. I really, at the end of the day, especially as a first time mom, I wanted to avoid a C-section.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I started getting uncomfortable around close to shift change, probably like 6 p.m. I had like really good nurse to start off with. And then my nurses switched like halfway through the day. And I got a nurse who's actually a family beginnings, like birth center nurse that got floated. The patient she was with, I think, was having like getting ready for a C-section. So they needed like an actual L&D nurse over there. So I had to say goodbye to my really great nurse. And then I got this nurse who was like, okay, a family beginnings nurse, you're here for a reason. They know I want an unmedicated delivery. And that's very nice of them to send her over. But she was a nervous Nelly. She was so nervous because that's not her area.
Oh.
And so that was really hard. She was, every time I walked in the halls, she was like beckoning me back to the room because like my monitor would jump off some.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like the previous nurse, like she would routinely put me like straighten up my monitors, but like she'd let me walk and like she'd catch me on a couple, like a lap, where this one was like every time it like slightly like started not picking up or jumping or something, she was like right there. And like I wanted to do a shower unmonitored for like a break. And so she let me do that. But then she was like upset because I was in there for too long. She was like, you can't do hydrotherapy. Like she was just very like,
oh man.
And I have a lot of understanding for her that like, that's not her area of like induction. She's with the natural women,
Yeah.
But yeah, she was pretty like difficult to be with. She just brought a lot of anxiety to it. I know like I was sitting on the ball and she came in like hurried and like baby's heart rate is dropping. Like she was frantic and I was like, I already knew like, no, it's not. Like I'm on the ball. Like it's my heartbeat. And
yeah, it's shifted. Yeah.
Yeah. I did end up like, crying because she was just taking away from like this
The
environment
experience.
that we were trying to build. Yeah. And this experience. And she was just kind of negative. She was like, taking too long with like the Pitocin, or I don't know how she said, she's like, you don't want your uterus or your baby to get lazy. And like just some of her language was kind of funny. Like she was not ill intent. That's just how she came across sometimes. But my lovely little doula came over and she's like, your uterus is not lazy, your baby's not lazy. Like she was just reassuring me. But 6 o'clock rolled around when things started to get uncomfortable and I was like having to stand up and try and do some work. And that nurse's lovely birth center skills finally came in right at the end of her shift, where she was doing some really awesome like hip movements with me. And she just like, she shone through, those last 45 minutes trying to help me cope. And I was like, oh, like, you would have probably been great over there. But
Yeah.
I got a new nurse for night shift and she was perfect. She reassured me. She's like, so I was kind of like starting to breathe and just not love birth or laboring. She's like, Elleah, my name is so-and-so. Like, I've read your birth plan. Everything sounds good. And it was just so nice, like for her to just be like, I read your birth plan. I feel like I've listened to so many people talk about them not ever
doing
at
that.
their,
Yeah.
And she was with me most of the night. She did so good with like anytime I was in the shower, she was like on her hands and knees, just like holding the probe for the heartbeat instead of like asking me to get up or move my position. She was just doing all the things and to monitor me while not bothering me, essentially.
Yeah.
Jumping forward, probably, like I said, I continued to do all the things for laboring. I had a birth playlist. I had like Lauren Daigle on. I had like a little sanctuary built with like a special purple blanket that my like deceased grandma got me. I had like a crucifix that we got for our wedding that was blessed, like a rosary that was made from our wedding wedding flowers.
Oh, that's cool.
Just like, yeah, some cute things to like look at and
Yeah.
hopefully keep me centered, and some like fake candles for lighting and stuff like that. And I spent a lot of time in the shower just trying to breathe through it. I will say, like, looking back at this time with laboring, I was so worried about what everyone else was doing and how everyone else felt. I was worried about, like, we were in this tiny little bathroom. It was hot, I was worried about my husband's back hurting, or, like people were shoved in spots to like spray the hose on my back. And I just like felt like I couldn't,
Relax.
yeah, I couldn't relax. Yeah, I was just very like trying to pay attention to all the things.
Yeah.
I finally, like, I was on backwards on the toilet. Um, I was puking, I was pooping. It was very wonderful time.
It's a very humbling time.
Yes,
It
it is
sounds like
so humbling.
transition. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what my friend was like, Elleah, like, you know what this is. Like, she was reminding me, like, that what is happening, like you're most likely transitioning. I I think somebody offered me anti-nausea medication, and I was like, no, like that's the
No,
one
I
time
don't
I
want to be
don't.
sleepy.
Well, yeah, I was having a lot of back pain, lots of back
Mhm.
labor. I think that's all I was having. I don't remember any other sensations other than my back ripping apart. But I was like, the only time I don't feel my back labor is when I'm puking. So I don't want the medicine.
So I would like to throw up, please.
Yes. It passed, but even on labor and delivery side, they had the option of birthing in the water.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah.
Were you allowed to with the meconium?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, they
that's
didn't
cool.
say, yeah,
Because
they
sometimes that risks you out, like at hospitals and stuff.
altogether.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, as far as I know, at least I was able to labor in it. And I think, from my memory serves me right, that I would have been able to birth in it too. But um, they told me like beforehand, like, we'll blow up the pool. It's an inflatable, we'll blow it up, and then we'll like roll it into your room and fill it up. And so I finally, like, I requested the pool, and they came in and they blew it up inside the room. So it's like the loudest
It's very
vacuum
loud.
cleaner noise, and you're in like the throes of labor. Was terrible. That was like
Yeah.
a core memory. And that was I mean, I was just screaming to like block it out. Like, I was out of my mind, like just frustrated, overstimulated with that
The
extra
noise.
noise.
Yeah.
And I, they wanted you to be checked before you got in the pool. I think I was only 4 centimeters. And I think part of my birth like preferences was to not be told
What you were.
what I was, but um and in hindsight, like, I'm on Pitocin, my labor's not stopping. Like, why do I have
Yeah.
to be checked in the water? I know that's the concern, is like labor slowing down, like if you get in
Hmm.
the water, but I was like, I'm on Pitocin, you're just gonna,
Yeah.
turn it up more. But um yeah, got in the water. Pool was not fully inflated. I think probably because I was not tolerating them blowing it up. So it's like water is like spilling out the side when I'm like leaning on it. And
Oh, boy.
yeah, I was like too far gone. I was like just kind of all over the place in the pool. And I just remember looking in my husband's eyes, like, because my friend was like, look at Joel. Like, she was trying to get me to focus because I was losing it. And I look at his eyes, and he looked so scared. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I just didn't want to look in his eyes anymore. I'm like,
You're
that's
like,
not what
you're
I
not the
needed.
person I want right now.
Yeah. Um, all to go to, like, I finally requested the epidural, and my midwife, or my doula, is like, do you want to go over the risks and benefits? And I was like, no, like,
Not right now.
I don't want to hear it. Like, I probably, like, what happens when you have your like close friend as your doula is like, you're not scared to like tell them no or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think I requested it, or I mentioned epidural a couple times, and they were doing their job trying to like keep me going.
Hmm.
And I think I finally, and my nurse was in the room, and I like avoided looking at my doula, and I was like, I want the epidural. Like,
And what time was this? Like, because your water had broken at 1 a.m. the night before. So
mhm.
what time is it now when you're getting the epidural?
It was a little after midnight.
Okay. So we're almost at 24 hours. Okay.
Hmm.
Gotcha.
Yep. Yeah. And they're like, okay, like we'll get the epidural, got me out of the water. Like, let's try and empty your bladder. I like hovered over the toilet seat and immediately popped up. I'm like, nope, like I can't do it. Like, and my always needing to know what was going on, I told my nurse, and was like, or maybe this was after the fact, but I was like, please, like, I don't want a resident like doing my epidural. Like, can I have a
Please get me the
CRNA?
real guy
Yeah, like, or I
or
don't know.
girl.
In my labor and delivery experience, I was like, for whatever reason, the nurse anesthetists were like
Mm-hmm.
the best.
Yeah.
So I was like, can I have a CRNA? And she's like, oh yeah, I would not get you. Like, she was so sweet. She's like, you're gonna get someone good. And they were in there so fast, and uh, she like did it so quickly. And I mean, I was like nervous about not holding still, but they had me like rolling my feet like in circles, and that like helped a lot as like preventing me from like moving, and
Mm-hmm.
I could just hold still with that.
Yeah.
And I got to like, I was just laying hugging my nurse, and like she was just so sweet, so it was like so nice. She was just a very good comfort. Got the epidural in, and I laid back. I had like the shakes and everything pretty bad, but I kind of knew all of that, and they were putting me all these warm blankets on me. I could feel like a big bulge in my lower back, my tailbone area, and I was like, in my mind, I was like, I think the head's like, I think she's like there. I think she's pretty low. I don't think I said anything though. And then I got all set up, and we all took a nap for like 2 hours, and then I was
Nice.
complete, naturally. I just needed that
To
epidural to
relax.
relax.
Yeah.
And one thing was like, once I got my epidural, the midwife was in the room, and she's like, looked at the screen, and she's like, turn her Pitocin down or something. Cause my contractions were like on top of each other. Like I was contracting too much. And I was
Yeah.
like, that would have been nice. Like
Mm.
to know
To
or
turn
do
it down
something.
earlier. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I had a really good epidural. I could move my legs really well. I was able to like turn, like squat on the back of the bed
Oh, nice.
when it was time to push. And so I started off like that. Just I wanted to do the breathe my baby down
Yeah.
motions. And so I kind of did that squatting and just trying to like relax everything and find my pelvic floor, which I did a lot of um, during pregnancy, like
Yeah.
learning about my pelvic floor. I did a lot of deep squats and figuring out how to like relax. And she like, you could see her head like pretty quickly
Mm-hmm.
with that. And then the midwife came in, and I started pushing more with her because I didn't have like it wasn't great for me. I didn't feel like I have a lot of power in the squat, like squatting in the back of the bed, a little too soft or something. But
Yeah.
I ended up turning around, and they had the squat bar up. So I was able to use that and squat and push with the squat bar. And then we did that for a while, and they actually like had me alternate between doing the squat bar and then like doing laying back, like kind of the regular semi inclined position.
Yeah.
So it was like every other squat, and then my husband and the nurse would help lay me back in the bed, and it was like just pushed like that for a while. I ended up pushing for about 2 hours, which was super surprising because her head like came pretty much within like the first few minutes of starting, and they were like,
Yeah.
you're going to be done in 20 minutes or something. I was like,
Oh, yeah.
never
Kind of
tell me
set you up for
times.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was getting really tired at this point. Yeah, after 2 hours, I was losing steam. I looked back at some of my pictures, and I remember like purple pushing. I gave up on the calm pushing. I was kind of getting stressed that it was taking too
Yeah.
long. And I also felt like after so long, I wasn't sure where I was pushing. So just giving it my all, even using my face. But she crowned for a while, and then all in hindsight, like I had no tearing. So it was all for like a good reason, but she took her time coming out. And at the end of pushing, like I noticed either it was because she was so low in my pelvis or the heartbeat was dropping. So I do remember hearing that or noticing that. But other than that, like her heartbeat was perfect the entire time. And she
Mm-hmm.
had thick meconium like the entire time
Yeah.
during labor. Um, and I know like when she was starting to like crown that they lowered my bed all the way flat and started moving my legs back. So like getting me in position for a shoulder dystocia. So I think it's like the Roberts maneuver or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. It's pretty much like lay you flat, and then like bring your,
Push your legs back as far as they'll go. Yeah.
yeah. It wasn't aggressive, but they were like starting to do that. And then she came out like, but I do remember like seeing the midwife grab scissors, and I was like,
What do
after
you have
they
those
gave
for?
me, yeah. Yeah, I was like, oh, like she had a shoulder, her heart, like in my mind, I was like, I think her heart rate was low. Like, they were putting me back, preparing me for shoulder dystocia. She grabbed the scissors. I got an episiotomy. Like I had all these thoughts, and I was like, did I get an episiotomy? And she's like, oh no. She's like, I've maybe done 5 of those in my entire career. And she's like older midwife. I was like, oh,
Good.
she grabbed the scissors for the cord to, eventually like cut the cord or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
She had me reach down and help pull the baby out, which I don't think I was much help, but she went right on my tummy. They actually, one thing that surprised me, like they did not stimulate, like the midwife, like I think like moved the nurse's hands away.
Oh,
They did not want to
nice.
stimulate because I don't think they wanted her to inhale meconium. So like she gave her some time. I definitely did not get 2 minutes of delayed cord clamping, but they did have Joel cut the cord and they took her to the warmer to suction her, which I think they prepared me all. I knew that the NICU team would be in there. Um, Took her to the warmer and like got me all set up. And oh, I forgot I was a NICU nurse at this time. I have
Oh,
in my career. So I had like a lot of newborn skills and like awareness at that time. So I was like, even before giving birth, I was like teaching my husband, like I think with a teddy bear or something, like you put your hands on them like this, like to make them feel comfortable, or if she's like taken from me or something. So he went over to the warmer with the NICU team, and they were really good about getting him in there, and just like putting his hands on her and being with her, and they deep suctioned her and monitored her a little. It was about 10 minutes of her being over there, which I don't remember feeling quite that long. But I did ask, at one point I noticed that they were just looking at her. They weren't doing anything. And I was like, can you
give her
look at
back.
her over here? Like,
Yeah.
can you monitor her on my chest? And so they brought her over and just like continued to monitor her there. And she worked up fluid for a long time, but like, I think her APGARs and everything were good. They just wanted that meconium out. Um, um, and yeah, that was, I mean, they put me together like cleaned me up, gave me a nice ice pack. I was like tucked in and ready. She nursed right away. I let her like do what she wanted to on the breast for like the whole 2 hours, which in hindsight led to a lot damage to start
Oh.
with. Because
Let her
like
do what she went, like maybe wasn't the most deep, proper latch.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think you kind of read some things like the breast crawl and letting them find it and letting them figure it out. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, yeah. And then then I had like scabs, and it was
Out.
not like a great start, but
Yeah.
they pretty much left us alone like to do that golden hour or whatever for the first 2 hours. And they did her like initial other checks, listened to her while she was on me and stuff. And they actually have like a separate nurse come in like at the 2 hour mark, like after your 2 hours are done, like not 2 hours are done, but like after you've had your 2 hours of time with your baby. She came in with a cart and did all like the prenatal, like the footprints or like the weighing
Oh,
and
yeah.
all of that stuff. And yeah, I was able to get up pretty quickly and go to the bathroom. Like yeah, my experience with epidural was really good. Postpartum initially was like pretty good. I utilized being in the NICU. We had lactation consultants on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So we were in intensive NICU, but we also had well babies that were just feeding and growing. So
Yeah.
I got to see a lot of nursing, and I would like, if I could and had time, I would just hang out in there. And if the mom was okay with it, like, and watch the NICU or the lactation go over all those things. So I had like a really good idea of it,
Mm-hmm.
of breastfeeding. But yeah, that I called in the lactation consultants like multiple times a day just to check. And I ended up using a nipple shield because I had scabbed. Um, and I know a lot of people have had really negative experiences or like have a hard time getting off of them.
Mm-hmm.
It worked really well for me. I like used it until I kind of healed enough that I could tolerate her latch better.
Yeah.
And then I would just like it just on and off kind of depended like how I was feeling. And as long as she wasn't creating more damage. And after the first couple of days, like I was able to stop using the nipple shields pretty easily. Um, she did have a tongue tie, which I feel like now is kind of I'm hearing more now that it's being overdiagnosed, but her dad had a severe tongue tie as a baby as well. So I was game for getting that fixed. Yeah, it went well, like breastfeeding wise. And early postpartum was all pretty good. Physically, I healed really good. Um, Emotionally, I had like the baby blues, or the early, like just tearfulness.
Mm-hmm.
My husband owns a business with his dad, a small business. And so he didn't have paternity leave. He just, whatever he would take off is like putting more work on his dad or putting him behind more. So he
Yeah.
was home some, and then there were days where he'd like go in for a couple hours and come back. And he was very like adamant, like if I needed him home, he would come back.
That's good.
Yeah. And his parents live very close as well.
So you don't feel like you had any postpartum depression? Were you still on depression medication? Like,
Mhm.
or, okay.
Yeah, I was still on medication. I had like tearfulness, but I think I was able to like be like, oh yeah, like hormones. Like um after like looking back, like a couple months out, looking back, I was like, it took me a solid like month or two to like leave our bedroom. Like I kind of
Yeah.
like set up in our bedroom and I had we had a small TV in there, and I just like my way of coping was to like just have like shows playing and only focusing on like nursing and stuff, which is good. The initial
Mm-hmm.
time, I just had a hard time coming out of that.
Coming
And
out of that. Yeah.
I had a hard time like taking on like starting to do house things that you need to do, like laundry or like some dishes and stuff. And like we had a lot of help too, but just like it was very overwhelming. Um, our firstborn is Maria, is her name, and she is from the get go just a very, I guess, a sour patch kid sometimes, but she's super sweet, like super fun, loving, like passionate little girl. But she has been so hard for me. And I think it's because like she's sensitive too, like emotionally sensitive,
Yeah.
has really big emotions. I have really big emotions. We're figuring it out together.
Mm-hmm.
I remember like her first night out of or like that first night is the worst, or maybe it's the second, whichever they say. And like being a NICU nurse, I've worked with like drug withdrawal babies. This is terrible to say, but they have a hard time. They're really sad. They're inconsolable. And I was shocked with like how mad she was that first night. Like I could not calm her. I didn't know what to do with her. I was like convinced that maybe the medication I was on, it was Zoloft, so it's super common medication in pregnancy. I was like convinced that she was withdrawal. Like I just thought something had to be wrong with her. And yeah, she was just angry. And she was kind of like that. She was like that for a long time. She was a colicky baby. She's still like, she just turned 3. She's just got some big emotions. And so looking back, it's like, yeah, it was her first night, but that was also like, that's just
Her.
kind of how she is. Yeah. Yep.
Mm.
She lets you know how she feels. Um, yeah. So that made for like late postpartum. And now I can say this because I've had 2, but like I do great early postpartum. Like I think I can manage that. But when it's like coming later, a couple months out, when you're kind of supposed to be getting back to life
Mm.
and
Mm-hmm.
doing things is when I really struggle.
Yeah.
You're still lack of sleep. Like you're still not sleeping. Your baby still needs you all the time, but now like you have to do things.
And people expect
And
you to kind of be back by then. Yeah.
yeah. So that's always been like the harder part for me, like postpartum wise.
Oh, yeah, I get that. I say like around 4 months for me usually is like, because then I feel like the babies regress with sleeping and stuff. And so then it's like I'm getting less sleep than when you were born. And
Mm-hmm.
yet I have to be up earlier and be active and doing more things than I was when you were born. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I get that for sure.
Yeah.
So then take us to your next pregnancy.
Yeah.
What was the spacing between when Maria was born and when y'all got pregnant again?
Yeah. So Maria was about a year and a half when we got pregnant for the second time. And that was we were ready to start having another baby, or like considering that process, but we weren't like trying.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I was also adamant. I was like, I don't want to be aggressively charting. Like
Yeah, yeah,
I wanted it, I wanted to give it time to like happen on its own.
yeah.
If it could. I wasn't ready in the mental space to like even be able to do that anyways. So we got pregnant. I would say like surprisingly easy for that one. And I did the same thing. I told my friend first, my husband second, and got my levels checked. My progesterone was low. I got on progesterone pills, the suppositories again. And I think this time my progesterone was like really low. I think it was like a 9 or something. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just, that's like one of the lower ones before, like that I could find before you kind of miscarry. But I also know like there's some doctors, I don't know if you've heard the terminology of like nat pro doctors. I think they're Christian or maybe just like Catholic based doctors that have like a lot more strict criteria on progesterone levels. A lot more like if your progesterone is this low, and a general doctor might say like either you're fine or do the suppositories. Whereas like a nat pro doctor would be like, you are doing like IM injections, you're doing like, they're just a lot more strict on like
A lot quicker to
levels.
take action with
Mhm.
the progesterone. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had a hard time with that because my doctor just wanted to do the suppositories, and I was looking at some nat pro charts online and like wanting to get a nat pro doctor, but I think I would have had to go like online out of state. Like it would have been a lot of effort too to
Mm-hmm.
find someone, and ended up all in all like being like at peace with, you know, my levels were coming up, and progesterone was doing what it was supposed to do. We had ultrasound at 8 weeks and got to see the little heartbeat. And like told our family that we were pregnant, I think right around Christmas time, beginning of the new year. And we went on a vacation with our friends on a cruise with our friends and our kids, both our kids. And I remember feeling like pretty decent during the cruise. Like I was like, ooh, maybe this one's a boy. Like my nausea is going away a little quicker, a little a little worried, but also just kind of hoping it was a boy or something was different.
Yeah.
Um, but we did come back from the cruise, and I was probably, I think maybe 10 or 11 weeks, and I had some cramping, and I don't think I had any spotting. And I called the office and talked to one of the nurses, and I told her, like, my symptoms have kind of been slowly fading out, and I'm having some cramping. And she reassured me, like, that can be normal. But at the end, like, she was like, if you feel more comfortable, let's get you in for a ultrasound. Like, they were super helpful. And so we had an ultrasound the next day, and they put the probe on. I could like tell right away that the baby looked the same as it did a couple weeks prior.
Oh, yeah.
And so, she did the measurement, and I saw that it measured 8 weeks and 4 days. And so baby had passed like a couple days after our first ultrasound.
Mm.
And I was supposed to be like 11-ish weeks. So
Mm.
a miscarriage, I guess is how that's called. So very like devastated.
Yeah.
They sent me right over back to my doctor's office, and they like get you right in. They don't make you sit out in the lobby with the pregnant people, which was really nice. Our OB sat down and talked to us, and like kind of went through options. Um, my best friend and doula had also had miscarriage, I think 2 miscarriages in the past. And I called her because I just kind of wanted to know what her experience was with like naturally miscarrying in a DNC. I just wanted to hear from my friend how her experience was with a DNC versus just naturally miscarrying. Um, my dad was diagnosed with cancer in that like previous fall time. And so it was originally, he was diagnosed with cancer. It was regular bladder cancer. And then we recently found out it was metastasized. And like, even at Christmas, when we announced our pregnancy, like, I just remember at Christmas, like, it was very obvious that he was not going to be around long.
Mm.
So I had like a lot of pain, like already. Sorry.
It's okay.
I was going through a lot of like struggles and like pain already, and I had Maria at home, who's like a year and a half, and she's like hardcore mama's girl. So I just couldn't imagine like going through the natural route of having the baby at home, knowing that like my daughter would be around and need me. And like, I just kind of think I was like, I don't want to add any more like trauma, because I know it can be really hard and really like, just like really, I mean, you're giving birth, like a painful birthing process, at home. So in all, I decided to do a DNC, and I actually just decided to go ahead and get it done that evening because he was available. And I was just like, I just felt more peace with that, because I didn't want to like deliver. I didn't want to go through it at home,
Yeah.
and kind of like lessen my pain. So we chose to have a DNC, and we went in that evening, just Joel and I, and the staff was all super sweet. It was actually like a really, like, for lack of better terms, like nice time with my husband. We, just got to sit together more. I think we put on Friends while we were waiting just to distract ourselves. And my daughter went to her grandparents that night. So when we came home, it was just sat in our sorrow together, but like, yeah, together and not like angry and separated. And so that made it just like a really beautiful time. And I think I was surprised with having anxiety and depression. I was expecting like, I just knew in my mind, I'm like, I'm at risk for like going off just going down.
Yeah.
And I was very grateful and very blessed. I felt very at peace with it. And we had named the baby Ezra.
Mm.
And I think it also means like God's helper. And I just like knew that was Ezra's purpose. And Ezra was never going to be like earthside. that was like okay, and I felt like okay with that. And so it was nice to go through that experience and just knowing that like it was all for like a purpose. And yeah, that was Ezra's story. That was in February. That was February 10th that we found out. And then my dad had passed away in May.
Mm.
So we did like, I had those few months of like getting to be with him and like my siblings and just like getting to take care of him. And so he passed away middle of May. And then I found out I was pregnant with Ruby in end of June, I think. End of June.
Wow.
So like bummed that I couldn't tell my dad, but I also felt like he already met her. So yeah, Ruby came around end of June, and that's kind of where her story starts. And like, just really hoping and praying she was our rainbow, and that I think I had anxiety over another miscarriage, but I was also very much like, I just not overly worried. I think it was just still like a normal amount of anxiety. I still want my levels checked, but I'm also like just mindful of it. And with Ruby, now I have a toddler. I have a toddler running around. And
It's different.
yeah, it is different. And I was working, I actually went back full time no, I'm sorry. I went after Maria. I had 4 months maternity leave, and then I went back PRN, and then I went back full time at this office easier job. And so like, yeah, full time job with the toddler and being nauseous, all the kind of the same things. I just felt nauseous and fatigued, very overwhelmed. Maria was still breastfeeding, and she was just she was very attached to me and like very angry when it wasn't me. And so
Yeah.
trying to get like her dad involved more in caring for her, like with nighttime stuff. It was so hard to like lay. She never slept in her crib. She ended up on the floor bed, nursing to sleep, and then I would roll away. And so she was still doing that when she was almost 2, or we nursed until she was a little after 2. But like laying down and nursing her and being nauseous was like, it was just so hard. I just did not feel great. And I just felt like, yeah, it was just trying time with like this toddler and being sick and wondering how am I going to be able to do this? Like with a
Yeah.
kid, kind of all those concerns and worries. My prep with Ruby was a lot more laid back. I had my doula training in between, like losing Ezra, and then I had my doula training, which is a weekend long thing. So that was like my birth my birth prep.
Aw.
I decided to do, actually with Ezra, I had bought in the Christian hypno birthing app,
Mm-hmm.
and so I had that with Ruby. That was like my main source, I think. And then I listened to podcasts, and birth podcasts. I have come a long way. I think I used to be like, I think a lot of people are when thinking about home birth, like what? Like kind of confused by it, when
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't first represented like as something that would happen. And then, I've come along, and I'm kind of glad with Ruby that it just wasn't an option, because we were moving house. We bought a new house, and we were, yeah, in the midst of moving when I was probably like 30 weeks. And so just, it wasn't going to be ready. Like I didn't feel comfortable. I did not feel like a drive, but I still really wanted, I wanted home birth care, like from my midwives. I wanted that with Maria as well. And I think talking with my friend, because she had her home birth, I got to hear about her
The
meetings,
care.
midwives, yeah, the hour-long meetings. And like she gave me so much education, like with nutrition, and like she had made me loose leaf tea, the Nora tea.
Mm-hmm.
And just like a lot of like what her midwives taught her and how they supported her and prepped her for a home birth, like how they taught her to build her blood supply. And like it was during like COVID, so they taught her how to, in case she wasn't able to come to an appointment, like how to check her fundal height and like just like really, give you so much leverage in your care. And
Yeah.
yeah, I really wanted that, but my appointments were still like the typical, like in and out, 10-minute.
Yeah.
It's like, do you have any questions? No, but I kind of like just want you to tell me some things,
Yeah.
like give me something, some sort of education or whatnot. But I still chose the same practice with Ruby. Um, I, I got to 38 and 2 with her. With Ruby, we also had like, I was convinced, even though I had a 38-week with Maria was 8 pounds, 13 ounces. She was a big girl
Mm-hmm.
for being like
For 38 weeks. Yeah.
38 weeks. So in my mind, I was like, she was probably like, her dates were probably off or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
So Ruby, I was like, we were moving house, and then we got a nice house that was not outdated or anything. Um, Pretty much like move-in ready. If we wanted to paint it, we could. We have had, we had so much like issues. We had like some water damage through all of our faucets. Like our whole house was a mess. We had damage in the main floor because I flooded a sink. So they were going to have to tear out our main floor that was like living room and kitchen and all of that. And then we had like all of our faucets. Like we had this gunk in it from like our water softener going bad and like clogging all of our faucets. So like
Oh,
we had
no.
drinking water or running water or whatever, like when I was like 37, 38 weeks. I mean, we came home with a baby and we had running water in some of the faucets and
Oh,
some
boy.
were cold. And it was a mess. So I was like, I'm going to be pregnant till like 42 weeks because I'm not going to be able to relax enough
Relax enough to go into labor.
to go into labor. Yeah. But no, I had woke up. Maria would still get up like once a night and just come into our room and get me. And I'd come lay with her for 10 minutes until she fell back asleep. It was like our nightly routine. So she did that. I think February 21st. So like 4 a.m. And I like remember laying with her and just kind of feeling like some cramping, but sleeping. I went back to sleep. And then that day I was like, noted, like it was still going on. I was like, oh, I'm having some contractions, or like, I guess, mild cramps.
Yeah.
But I also was like blessed in I had some bloody show and I had like loose bowel movements too, like all these like
All the
textbook
signs.
signs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that was really nice being a birth nerd and not getting that with my first birth. I was like really excited to be getting like to
The
experience.
signs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the signs like but looking back it was still like, I don't know. You feel like
Always question yourself.
yeah. Like how obvious do you need to be before you give birth? But I had my 38-week appointment scheduled for that day. So I like actually it was supposed to be in the morning and I just moved it back because I was like, it's a 50-minute drive. I don't want to have to make it twice. So I'm hoping like maybe I'll just go into labor before then.
Oh, yeah.
And so I won't have to like, yeah, drive back and forth so much. But I didn't. It stayed mild, consistent contractions. I had my appointment with my midwife and she asked if I wanted to be checked and I said no, and that was fine. She said it could be today, it could be a couple days,
Yeah. Could be days.
Yeah. And I did show her like my pad because I was unsure about if it like, I knew I was losing my mucus plug, but sometimes it seemed like more watery. And I was a little like uncertain if there was like a small leak or something.
Yeah.
She did the pH strip and that tested positive, but then she did the slide for ferning and that was negative. So she was fine. Like we agreed, my water didn't break. I went home. Kind of kept at like, I think I was uncomfortable enough. Like I couldn't be around my daughter. I couldn't be like somebody telling me their constant needs and, crying.
Yeah.
Like that wasn't like,
Right.
I wasn't tolerating that very well. So she was at her grandparents and then came home for bedtime because nothing was really happening. And then the next day I went to the babysitter and I just kind of had the whole day to myself. And I even like, I mean, I texted my boss. It's like, I might call off tomorrow, but we'll see. I don't know. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
really a labor, but I kind of am. I had mild contractions all night, but I was able to sleep through them. I think I took some breaths with it. It was just like really peaceful. And I get like on the 21st, when my labor started, I had a chiropractor appointment scheduled that day or a massage scheduled that day. And I like called my chiropractor to see if I could get in last minute as well. Cause like, I just hear those like rare dreamy birth stories where they're like, yeah, I went for a massage and I got to see my chiropractor while I was in labor. And like, it just all sounded really nice. And I was lucky enough to get that. And all like, you know, it was like a super sunny day and it's February and it was,
Which is not common in Ohio.
yeah, the sun and yeah, in the winter is not ever a thing. And I could like walk around in a sweatshirt. Like it was just such a nice day. So I got like my massage. I had my chiropractor appointment. I took a walk around like the park.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just kind of had that dream early labor. And the next day I continued on that. It was rainy the next day, but it was like I was trying to watch a movie. I was kind of like loosely doing the mile circuits, which was for me like, and talking about Maria's birth, and like I was just kind of like had to be so like perfect at all the things and like do all the things. And then doing this like, that position's not very comfortable for me, so I'm not going to do it the whole. I was just a little more laid back.
Yeah.
I just kind of played in my mind, is like I played around in my early labor. I was not strict. I did a little bit of curb walking here and there. I walked down the street and we have like a big hill at the end of our street. And I read Ina May's book in my first pregnancy, and she talked about sending one of the laboring mothers out to like stomp through the forest during labor or something like that. And so I was just like picturing that on stomping on my hill. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. My husband was still at work. I didn't really want him to come home. Like I was just pretty content by myself. I kept in touch with my doula, Chelsea, she actually had a small infant or a 4-month-old. And so I wasn't sure if she was going to be able to actually like
Be
come.
there.
Yeah, which is totally understandable. And I was also very lucky because she had a home birth midwife student who needed births.
Oh.
And so she was like in our text chain. So she was hoping to come as well. And I just got to like keep them in the loop and kind of updating everybody continuously. All my text messages were like, nothing's changing. And it's been 24
Just
plus
these
hours.
mild crampings. Yep.
Yeah.
I tell people early labor can last for days. So get
Yeah.
ready.
Yeah. And yeah, but it was a whole new ballgame for me. I think around lunchtime, I remember like my husband went like a half hour away and got this food that I really wanted. And then like I was starting to get nervous that he wasn't home yet. And I was also starting to get like scared. And I told Chelsea that I like texted her, I'm feeling scared. And she like sent me a really beautiful message of like, just voice message, this is what you want. You have been through a lot of hard things. Like, you can do hard things. And like, she's like such a close friend that I also feel like God speaks to me through her a
Mm-hmm.
lot. Like, there's so
Mm-hmm.
many times I like reach out to her and like she just says, exactly what I needed to hear. Um, and so I remember like hearing her message and then crying, and like looking back now, I was like, oh, that was like kind of that emotional release you get before labor takes off.
Yeah.
Um, I had like my setup in my room. Like, I had my birth ball. I had like, we have like a small walk-in closet, and I
Mm-hmm.
had bought like a birth sling. I don't know. I feel like those had just started coming out, but I saw on Instagram like these birth slings that you use. You can hang them over like a door hinge
And you
and
can hang on them.
hang on them, wrap like around all different positions. And I was so
Mm-hmm.
excited about that because I do like to squat a lot in like pregnancy and preparing. And for whatever reason, I was like obsessed with the idea of my closet. And because I imagined going into labor in the middle of the night, I'm like, I'll go in my closet. That way Joel can sleep
Sleep.
fresh, leave me alone. like, I'll be in this dark little spot. I got twinkle lights. I have my Christian hypnobirthing on in my headphones. And yeah, so I did that for a while. And then I talked to her. I had my cry. He came home with like this lunch that I was really, really craving, and I did not want it. Like, it was all of a sudden sounded terrible.
Been
And I
there.
kind of, yeah, yeah. And it was like, he kind of drove like an hour, like total, to get this food. So I kind of felt like I'll eat it. And I did. I ate it, and I'm really grateful I did. But yeah, so he was finally home with me, and like things were starting to get like pick up a little bit more, starting to get a little uncomfortable. Um, when I told her I was scared, I was just nervous that like this had been so mild for so long, and I was like kind of getting irritated now, like how like I didn't know how I was going to handle it getting any harder though at the
Yeah.
same time. And anyways, Joel was home with me. I was like breathing through my contractions. I kind of put him on timer task, um, like reluctantly, I guess. Eventually he got on timer task, timing my contractions, because I think I kind of kept telling him like, if there's no point in timing them, they're too
Mild.
mild. And or even like, I'm like, it is like 2 deep breaths, and then it's like,
You're fine.
yeah. So I just had a hard time, but he did finally he started timing them.
Okay, so was your goal to stay at home as long as possible before going to the hospital, or were you wanting to go to the hospital sooner? Like, what were you guys planning to do?
Yeah, I wanted to use the birth center. Um,
Mm, right. Same
again,
birth center. Yeah.
same birth center. And, it's like got the big king bed, got the big like bath jacuzzi, luxury, like
Yeah.
setup there. So I was like, I want to get there and like utilize it.
And use it, right?
Yeah, I don't want to come in like hot and
Having the
bothered, like
baby.
ready to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
If I wanted to just come in and like have the baby, I would have just like went to the hospital. That's
Right.
closer. But so I wanted to go, but I didn't want to drive 50 minutes and then not be far enough and get sent
Right.
home.
Right.
And yeah, looking back, it's like I don't know what my thought process was, because that was the original plan. But when I was in labor, I don't know what I was expecting, like when I was expecting to leave, but it just
Yeah.
seemed like too manageable. And I was scared to go and like
Get
not
sent back.
be, yeah,
Right.
yeah. And I kind of thought like maybe get a hotel or something if that would have happened, but that also didn't sound very comfortable. Anyways, I was laboring on the ball, and then as long as I could stand up and like lean over my bed and breathe like a few deep breaths, like it was super, like I could get through that contraction. One of like my favorite small memories of this labor was like we eventually like laid on our bed and like just held hands, and I'd kind of fall asleep in between. And then as long as I didn't let myself fall too deep asleep, that I was like, knew when my contraction was coming, got up on my hands and knees, did my deep breaths and laid right back down. But it was just a really nice moment, like together with Joel, just like peaceful.
Yeah.
I remember feeling like I started to kind of feel pressure in my hips, and I had him like go ahead and like push on my hip a little bit, and I was like, no, you can like dig into my hip. And so he was
Squeeze
like,
those things.
yeah, get in there, dig in there. And he did that once. And then I felt the pop, and
There it was.
yeah, there it was. That's why I was feeling pressure for my hips. I got up, I went to the bathroom, and there was meconium in my water. So
It's just how your labors go.
I know, I'm like, are my babies stressed? Like, do I stress my babies out? Why am I having meconium?
They're just ready to come out. I've had meconium in multiple of mine. They're just ready to come out.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. But it was like a light green. Like it wasn't like
Like a tinge.
Yeah, it was a tinge. And but I immediately was like, it kind of immediately kind of went into like a little bit of panic. Like, okay, things get more intense when your water breaks. And now I have to go 50 minutes in the car, and I'm getting risked out of the birth center. Like all of that was kind of hitting at one time.
So they risk you out for any meconium at all?
From my understanding, yeah.
Oh, man.
Yep. Yeah. Which is funny because the NICU team can actually come to the
birth center.
So that seems weird to me, but
yeah,
the NICU team can come.
Well, just because babies are born all the time vaginally fine, completely naturally with meconium, like it happens all the time. So, yeah. Okay. Well, anyways, so what did you guys decide to do? Did you decide to go ahead and get in the car, or did you labor at home a little longer?
No, it was go time then. I rinsed off in the shower and got dressed, but I was like, Joel ran downstairs to, I think, get everything in the car and call the birth center. And I was like starting to panic in the shower. It was like right after my water broke. And then, I got dressed and I like put on his sweatpants because
yours didn't fit anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't want meconium on mine, All
right. Stay in his pants, not yours.
Yeah. I started going downstairs and I was like crawling backwards down the stairs. Like I was drenched in sweat. I was like, I can't do this. I can't do it. Like I was.
So things got intense pretty quickly.
Immediately. Yeah. Immediately. Like water broke. I sat in the toilet and then it was like, I was gone. Like I was just kind of out of my mind. I was just very and looking back, I don't remember like pain ever being.
It's probably a lot of pressure.
Maybe, yeah, pressure. I just felt like, overwhelmed. Like, I didn't know, I just kept saying I couldn't do this. But I remember looking at like my living room, like when I was like on the steps, it's like, I'm going to go right there. That's where I'm going to give, I don't, just like
we're having a baby in the living room.
Yeah. And Joel's like trying to call. They didn't answer. They're not answering the phone at the birth center. And so I was like, well, whatever. We're still going.
We're coming. Yeah.
It's in the hospital. They'll be
Somebody
there.
will be there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not the freestanding where like somebody has to come unlock the door. But yeah. So I actually was like, once again, I think at least I do when I'm pregnant, especially I like fixate on something weird. And I think having the back of my van all like cozy and comfy was something I like felt like fixated on. And not that it was really all that cozy and comfy, but I was getting rid of like one of our big comforter that was really fluffy. And I like had it, I put it on top of the trash can to throw it away. And then I was like, I'll keep that. And I'll put it in the back of the van. And so I did that. And I had, I don't know, probably like the emesis bags and stuff like that. I was like, the back of my van prepped because I imagined laboring there.
Yeah.
In the back. Cause I was like, there's no way. Like, I don't know how people sit in their seat and labor in the car. The back of the van laying, it would be, so comfy and peaceful, which is not the case, but in my mind it was going to be like that. So he got me in the back of the van and he was on the phone with Chelsea, and which I think she was starting to like poke little red flags up beforehand when I was saying like, they're too, they're
2 minutes apart.
well, they're too short. The peak or the intensity is like really short. She's like, it doesn't matter. It just matters if it's getting more intense. Is it like, it's not mild anymore. It's, so she was kind of, I think, trying to encourage like us to go anyways. But I hopped in the back of the van. I said I was going to puke. He grabbed like one of those big Home Depot paint buckets. Yeah. And then we took off and I was yelling, I was just still out of my mind a little bit. And I can hear him on the phone with Chelsea, like, or he just told me, he's like, I'm on, Chelsea's on speakerphone. And I was like, I don't want to talk to Chelsea. Like, just, she was going to tell me I'm doing fine. Or, she's going to tell me all these things that she's supposed to tell
you.
Yeah. And I don't want to hear it. But, we started driving down the road. We live in a rural area, and we get down the road and he's like, actually just down our road, he's like, are we going to like the hospital 50 minutes away, or are we going to go to the one that's closer? And I finally just said, like, go to the one that's closer. Like, I can't make a 50-minute drive. Like,
yeah.
And I think I was so panicked because I thought I had a long time to go. I thought like
you were going to be feeling like that for hours.
Yes, because that's how it was with the Pitocin. Like, It was intense for a lot longer. And so he started to head in the direction of the closer hospital. He also like told his parents, because they had our daughter, we're heading to the hospital. And then he like texted them, we're at Meyer's garage. And they said they thought like, how stupid, you didn't fill up on gas. Like they had to find your friends too, and they could see that we were at Meyer's garage. And he's like, baby's coming.
Gas.
Like all these little text messages. Cause when I was in the back of the van, and I never threw up, but it was like, I heaved a couple of times, like felt like I was going to throw up, but then that just kind of changed to the other end. They say, the fetal ejection reflex. And I was like, oh, I'm not throwing up. Like, I was like, I'm
pushing.
And I was starting to like get a relief from those panicky like feelings. I was like, felt like I could see a little bit clearer. I had like moments of like a break.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, am I pushing? I think I'm pushing. And he just kept driving. And then I like finally put my hand down on my perineum, and I was like, oh yeah, it's bulging. Like, I'm pushing, Joel. Like, I told him to pull over and like call the squad. And so he pulls over at a gas station in a car garage. But it's on like the corner of two state routes. And it is like 5:00 in the afternoon, early evening. So everybody's getting off work.
Shower. Yeah.
And everybody's passing this garage station, and people like, there's like the workers, and we're in an area that everybody knows everyone. So we know, like, he knows these two people are coming up to the car, and like, he's like, she's in labor. Like,
we're having the baby.
But like, I knew he was in the back seat, in the middle seat now. And I knew he rolled down that window, and I thought like my whole body was exposed, even though he rolled down like this much and he just like shoot him away. I was like, go away, like yelling at them. Cause I thought like my whole butt
was the trunk closed? So you're like enclosed in the car.
I'm enclosed, but yeah, he rolled down the window to talk to someone, and they were like offering if they needed help. And I was like, just go away, leave us be. And at that point he was on the phone with the squad, or the 911. So they were like asking, I could hear, can you ask her to get on your back? And I was like, no, like, he's like, yeah, that's not going to happen. Like, she's not going to go on her back. I was on hands and knees. And I think they asked if he could see ahead, and he was like trying to like, I didn't realize like my back half was in like a corner. So he like couldn't see anything. And so he was like trying to see, but he touched my butt, and I was like, get off me. I was just like, it was like, why were you touching? I was just very frantic. And I think they're trying to prepare him like, okay, well, like first the head's gonna come out and then the body. And like, so I had like my hands down there, I could feel her head coming. And we talked about like, I wanted to catch if that worked out. If not, then like maybe if he wanted to catch. And so my hands were down there feeling her crown. And then, then she actually is born and you're bracing and he was not ready to catch. So she just landed on that nice soft comforter that I had in the van. And then he just like passed her through my legs. And yeah, she was just like that startled newborn, wide eyed, like looking at
Yeah.
me. Yeah, immediate relief. So that was so cool. And like, it was so cool to not push, like,
Right.
purposely.
For 2 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, for 2 hours and, like, not know how to push. It was just happening. Like, those are all things I, like, dreamt of,
Yeah.
and I dreamt of not having any cervical exams, those are all things that, like, were in my heart of, like, a dream birth, and to pretty much not be bothered, like, I wasn't worried about anyone with this birth, what people were doing, how everyone was feeling, if they were comfortable.
Yeah.
Um, so, yeah, it was just really, really nice, minus the car. Part, but
So does then the ambulance like show up? When did you deliver the placenta? Like, what did all that look like?
yeah. Um, First, I will say, like, Ruby was born in my arms. I was concerned about the meconium, and I think they were like, 911 is asking if we had a bulb syringe. I had watched like birth videos in preparation to slash my obsession, but I remember seeing a birth video of a mom like doing the mouth to nose, like putting her
Sucking.
mouth over the baby and
Mm-hmm.
suctioning. And so I just kind of started doing that. And then like, yeah, she was breathing just fine. She looked good, I guess,
Yeah.
in what I thought. And then that the EMTs came like probably a minute after she was born, so very shortly. And they were pretty good. They opened the back trunk, and like one of them, it was a young lady. They sent her in, and she came in and just like sat in the back with me. So I was like happy that they didn't just leave the back open. Like I was worried about being exposed and just like
Yeah.
it getting really chaotic. Um, and she was like, okay, like, yep, I'm gonna clamp the cord. And it's like, I don't want to clamp the cord. I don't want to cut the cord. Like, I think I heard stories of like mom and baby getting separate ambulances,
Mm.
as like they would have since there's two people, they had to have two ambulances. And I said, we're riding in one, and I don't want you to cut the cord. And she's like, yeah, no, you guys will ride in one. Like, these are just things I was like, I guess in my brain, I'm also prepared for this.
Yes.
So Joel's parents actually were like arrived right at the same time as the squad because they live right down the road. And he was like, told them that we were giving birth at the garage,
At
at
the gas
Meyer's
station.
garage.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the squad or the workers, whoever, they were able to they held sheets up, like white sheets, and got me, like, I got on the stretcher with Ruby on my chest, like she's just hidden under my bundle of blankets. It's like February. And yeah, we got in the car or the squad, and I like asked Joel to like, I told him like I wanted Joel to come, and they kind of like they just didn't know, it's a lot of things were like, okay, like, but they were very like happy to oblige. So Joel came, but EMTs are there to help with like critical situations and save lives. And this was a very like natural birth, and everybody was healthy. And realistically, if I was a little bit slower, I could have just stayed home and then not had to have the squad come or whatever. um, but the EMT was like checking our vital signs. She put like the oxygen probe on Ruby's foot, and I think she saw like her feet were blue, which is normal, blue or purple or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But them not like doing births, I think
I'm not
she
familiar.
thought like she was blue. Like she kind of like got nervous. She grabbed an oxygen mask. Like And I just kind of like, I was a little confused and like, maybe she's seeing something I don't, like maybe she heard something in her lungs or whatever. But like, I just kind of held the oxygen mask by Ruby's mouth. And then eventually like the older EMT was like, I think the baby's okay. Cause she was kind of getting like rigorous, like with her, like, she was just a little panicked. So that was like, I'm glad I, in theory, knew things were okay. Otherwise it'd been pretty stressful. Like
Yeah.
thinking something was wrong. She also massaged my uterus for like 15 minutes, like nonstop. And I was
Ah,
like, I couldn't like talk. And I finally like mustered up like enough to like say, can you please like take a break? And she's like, yeah, you have no bleeding. I was like, okay,
oh
good.
my gosh.
They just didn't know, you know?
She's like, not on my watch. You're not going to bleed on my watch.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
And we got to the hospital, and this is the hospital that I wasn't like that was
Registered at.
closest. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Chelsea had ended up like she called the hospital, gave them all my information that she knew, like as far as like
Mm-hmm.
my health and birth and all of that. And
Yeah.
she met us there, and so did the home birth midwife student. And actually, the squad didn't know where the labor and delivery was, and they like pulled into like the wrong area. So Chelsea like runs over and like waves them down, like
Come
doula
over
in so
here.
many ways that you're just like, yeah, yep, got them in the right spot. And yeah, postpartum. I mean, immediate postpartum was just kind of chaotic. Uh, I had an OB that I didn't know, and she's like, my first birth was with an epidural, so I didn't feel the placenta, or all these, like, I was numb, so it was just a lot more comfortable. And I was like, my tailbone hurt really bad, like sitting.
Yeah.
She was kind of tugging on my placenta, and I was nervous that she was like going to rush things, and like, the cord was
Mm-hmm.
going to snap or something. Like, I just didn't have a lot of faith, like trust, because I didn't know him.
Yeah.
And I also chose not to go to that hospital, like for multitude of reasons.
Reasons.
But I was very proud of her because a nurse came up and she's like, I have like Pitocin, like I have this shot I'm going to put in your leg. And that was something I thought about, but I just never made up my mind officially, like if I wanted to get Pitocin injection after. And so that was like, okay. And then the doctor stopped her and she's like, she has like no bleeding. She doesn't need that. I was like, oh, I'm so proud, like
Thank you.
not giving an intervention when one's not needed. And yeah. But it was like a little bit chaotic. I remember like kind of laying there and like after the placenta was delivered, I didn't have any tearing. And I was kind of like, where's my ice pack? Like my first experience with Maria was like, they washed me down. They like put an ice pack on and like tucked me in and got me all prepped and ready. And then I got my baby. It kind of worked out. Like, yes, immediate skin to skin is great, but like, it just like, it was okay. Cause like
Mhm.
I got cleaned up, I got sat up and I felt like I could hold my baby. Where
Yeah.
now I'm like, my butt hurts. Like I feel like you didn't clean me off. Like I just felt like kind of left. And so I was like telling my husband and Chelsea and the midwife. And so they were asking for an ice pack, but these people were just like, I showed up, they don't have my information. They were scattered. I can't fault them, but those are like the little things. I'm like, I kind of want to go to the
I
bathroom.
miss my ice pack.
I want my ice pack. I loved that thing with my first postpartum. Yeah, I was obsessed with the ice pack. I want to clean up a little so that I can like enjoy my baby. Because right now
Yeah.
I just feel like so, and that's like something else I felt like I listened in stories, like hearing people talk about feeling kind of guilty for not wanting like the full golden hour or whatever. And I guess like, yeah, I just was like, no, like I also like in so many ways that you advocate for yourself at your birth, like it's okay to also like, okay, no, I just need a minute. Like that was a lot. I need
Mhm.
to like clean up really fast, and I need to get comfortable, and like then I can enjoy my baby like right up on me. So yeah, they did get, I think she went to Joel really quick, and then I was much better like after I got situated. But yeah. And immediate postpartum again was like really good. I heal really well. Like I don't have tearing. I don't have excessive bleeding or clots. I have like a lot of tailbone pain. and I always end up with back problems because I have no abs. And you just kind of like after you have the baby, I think I try and whatever, but early postpartum was pretty good again. A little bit of crying, but like
Normal. Yeah.
normal. And my friend had set up like a nesting party when I was like 35 weeks.
Oh, that's
And
sweet.
yeah, that was really nice of her. And it was perfect because I don't like cooking. I don't like planning meals. It's something that stresses me out. So that's pretty much all we did. We made a lot of food and I was really set up for that. And we spent a lot of time at Joel's parents because, within those 6 weeks early postpartum, they were tearing up our floor. And like it was
Right. All the water
very,
stuff.
yeah, very chaotic in a lot of ways, but also like God just allowed us to like still be able like to be calm and to
Mm,
find a place that was comfortable and when things weren't necessarily ideal, it was like still just all very manageable. and
yeah.
and she's a chiller baby, so that's kind of nice.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Different from your first daughter then.
Yeah. Yeah. My first daughter loves her little sister. It was a really hard adjustment because she's attached to mom.
Right.
But yeah, she's accepting of dad. She's accepting of her. So yeah.
So, what do you feel like God taught you through all of those experiences, through your first and then your miscarriage and then your second daughter? Like, what do you feel like He was speaking to you and teaching you through those experiences?
Mhm. I had, like I said, so much. I needed to control so much. I like, with my first, and I think there was just so much that was out of my control with my second, and also a lot more just like kind of surrendering, which I think that was one thing that drove me to your podcast. Like I think I listened to one, I'm like, oh, and it's Christian podcast, like we talk about God, and I just loved that word. Um, and I think I held that word at the end of my pregnancy with Ruby and like surrendering. And because I also felt once again like I'd been through so much that year that I wasn't sure if like emotionally I could handle a natural birth and I was going to be okay with that. Like, I guess like, yeah, I just thought maybe I would be like not emotionally ready with like loss of a baby, Ezra and my dad, and actually my dad's very close brother right before Ruby was born. So there was like just a lot of loss and a lot of emotions. And so I did really like, I think I found your podcast towards the end of Ruby's pregnancy. And so I just like kind of clung to that word surrender and accepting it and knowing that he has his hands in it all. I like know I struggle with my relationship with him, like talking with him and just spending more time with him. But I think like I look back through my experiences and I can see like in hindsight, like I can see like he is there
Mm-hmm.
and he's just waiting for me, to like invite him in.
Yeah.
And so I love listening to your podcast too and just listening to other people's stories. I love hearing other people's experiences because it helps me like, okay, like and like bring my focus back. Yeah, I think instead of worrying that like I'm not praying enough and I'm not doing enough, like I'm trying to rest in like what he's giving me. Like I think I used to like really just get down that I'm like not verbalizing my prayers or sitting in quiet time enough. But quiet time's really hard for me. My brain is pretty busy. And so I've started to recognize like, hey, I get like really good things out of like just having conversations with people.
Mm-hmm.
And like maybe God just talks to me more through others, and like recognizing that that's all kind of a new thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
um and so like I like listening to stories with him getting like the recognition. I have like my close friend who like I just like started recognizing like I just really think like he speaks to me a lot through her,
Mm-hmm.
and like yeah, looking for him more, instead of trying to like do what I think I'm supposed to be doing, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I can relate. I get like definitely, I mean, as moms, right? We always have like 1,000 things running through our minds, and we're always thinking about like 10 things at once. And it's very easy to get distracted or, whatever when we're praying, especially if we're trying to have like this focused time of prayer. I find that if I'm not like audibly speaking out loud my prayers,
Mm-hmm.
and even sometimes when I am, or if I'm not writing, like journaling my prayers, then I get like very quickly, I'll be like, oh, sorry, God, back on track, back on track. So for me, like, cause I'll pray a lot while I'm walking, with my kids or like, pushing the baby in the stroller or whatever. And if I'm not saying it out loud, then I'm like, oh, that's right. That's right. We were talking, Lord. You and I were talking. That's what we were doing. I was not thinking about the 10,000 things I need to do today.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I find like journaling my prayers helps me stay like the most focused for sure. Like is just when I'm journaling those prayers, like in terms of like me speaking to the Lord, in terms of him speaking to me, gosh, there's like, if we listen, like if we're super intentional about listening, like he's always speaking, is speaking through other people, speaking
Mm-hmm.
through, worship music, speaking through his word, like getting into his word. And I know like as busy, exhausted moms who nurse all night and, work and do different things during the day, it's like, how am I going to have this time to sit down and listen? But whenever I do, just being very intentional about opening his word and saying like, Lord, show me, speak to
Mm-hmm.
me, whatever I read today, like talk to me, like get through to me what you're trying to say to me through your word. Cause like his word is alive. I did like this giveaway for the 1-year anniversary last month. And one of the things I gave away was the Busy Mom's Bible, because I feel like I don't know very many moms who aren't, who don't have like 1,000 things on their plate all the
Mm-hmm.
time between their kids and their home and their husbands. And if they're working or running businesses or whatever, it's just, it is so much. But yeah, sorry that I tangented there for just a second. Um,
Good tangent.
um, advice. Do you have any advice for any moms? Any pregnant mamas? Any moms wanting to get pregnant? Like anybody, really? Is there anything you'd want to say or anything? Any final thoughts? What would you say?
Yeah, I think exposing yourself. Like I think, well, having like a few friends that kind of just like go with the flow, like, I'm going to do what my doctor says, and having respect for your doctors and everything is really wonderful. But also like at like just a minimal exposure, like getting a story and just hearing like what birth can be like natural, just like a broad picture, just getting some sort of knowledge on your own, like a little bit of research, anything to kind of, if they're hesitant. I'm assuming if they're listening to your podcast, maybe they're already on that road, which would be good. But I really liked, I guess, advice. Like I really enjoyed the Christian hypno breathing app.
Mm-hmm.
For the reasons like it just kept giving you those Bible verses and like
Yeah.
speaking his word, and even if I was like kind of struggling to like, I can't hear the whole, like I'm not getting it, I'm not retaining, but like if it's just a word,
Yeah.
listen to that word for whatever reason, that's your word, that's what he's telling you. Yeah, I've learned a lot. I think what I've learned is about my mom gut, and that's really neat. And that starts, before you become a mom. It starts with like your fertility journey,
Mm-hmm.
like God gave you this like intuition to, you can speak through that as well. And like you stick up for yourself with like wanting to get the proper care in your health and your fertility and like your pregnancy, asking all the questions. And if something doesn't agree with you, like searching elsewhere, getting other opinions.
Yeah.
Um, I had like, all the things in my first labor, and nothing traumatic happened, of course, which I'm so blessed. But I was like really nice to also be able to advocate for myself in that first birth. And like, I just felt like I was taking care of my baby, already, like
Yeah.
asking for more time, just to consider like whatever options they're bringing to the table. And yeah, I don't know, listening to that intuition and mom gut and postpartum is scary, like trying to care for a newborn and not knowing like anything, if you don't know anything about newborns, but you're still given that gut if something doesn't feel right, and learning to listen to that, because it's really easy to like see what social media is telling you. And I fought that battle, especially with my first, wanting to learn more,
Mm-hmm.
and also learning too much and listening too much to other people and not
Yeah.
enough to myself or my, our family and our baby. And so that firstborn is like, they're firstborn for the reason. They're the guinea pigs. But
Right.
um, yeah, and I was told, I think I was at some point was nervous to become a mom and to be a good enough mom. And my dear friend Chelsea reminded me, like, God gave you this is your baby, and he chose you as the mother, and he chose you for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And that has like, I was like, okay, like any of my mess ups, like he knows everything, and he still chose me to be this child's mom, and I'm gonna accept that, and that is like good enough. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for your stories and your heart. And I really appreciate this very much so.
I'm very thankful for you guys and all your time and all the work you're doing.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. You can reach me at Surrendered Birth Services on Instagram, or email me at contact@surrenderedbirthservices.com. Be sure not to miss an episode by hitting the follow button. Also, we'd love for you to leave a written review of the show so that more people's births and lives can be changed by the love of Jesus and the empowerment of accurate birth education. If you really enjoyed this episode in particular, please take a screenshot of it and post it to your Instagram story, tagging Surrendered Birth Services. If you would like to be a guest on the Surrendered Birth Stories podcast, please click the link in the episode show notes to fill out your interest form. Also, if you're interested in taking my childbirth classes, birth consultations, or having me as your birth doula, please click on the link in the show notes to take you to my website for online and in-person options. Just as a reminder, this show is not giving medical advice, so please continue to see your personal care provider as needs arise. We hope you have a great week, and remember, learn all that you can, make the best plans, and then leave it in God's hands.
He did finally he started timing them. And
Was your goal to stay at home? Oh, was that your dog?
Yeah.
Sorry, dog.
Yeah.
You must have seen something outside.
Yeah.